is increase the availability of dental health for absolutely everybody, make it completely free, make it accessible.
Well, that's something we were talking about earlier, Rosemary, and the problem is there are so many people who can't get hold of an NHS dentist at the moment that one person's suggesting maybe this is a cheap way of making sure people's teeth are better to mass medicate rather than employ more NHS dentists.
There is a real problem with the fact that it's so uneven. The amount of fluoride in the water is so variable across the country. People who live around Hartlepool and in some areas of Essex have naturally got enough fluoride in the water. About 10% of water companies are adding fluoride to the water. But the main problem is that you ask somebody, have you got fluoride in your local water supply? And they just won't know. Now, in my opinion, we should be putting fluoride in the water because there is a percentage of young children who are not having their teeth looked after, and even if they had availability of dentists, sadly, they wouldn't be going to dentists. My sister is a dentist and she sees children as young as 6 who've got their whole mouths are full of rotten teeth. They have to have the whole lot removed and then they can't eat. And we know that fluoride is safe, there's no long-term harm for it as long as you only have the right amount, and it can reduce caries by 40 to 60%.
So generally you talk about mass medication, but if there's no firm evidence that in the doses it's given that it does you any real harm, what's the problem?
I don't think that you can absolutely blanketly say it does you no harm. That's
We've been talking about it for
ridiculous.
40 years. I mean, we must know by now if there's a problem or not.
No, I think there are lots of studies that show that there have been problems with long-term use of fluoride or with overuse of fluoride. For starters, there's dental fluorosis, I think the expression is, where there's staining of the teeth. I know someone personally who has that from being given too many fluoride drops. Now, how do we know whether people are going to have it in their water? Then they might, you know, with children, they often swallow toothpaste. Then they perhaps have fluoride drops as well if they've got a well-meaning parent. There may be some people who overdo it. And also we've got to think about animals. You know, it inhibits enzymes. There have been studies on horses that have shown the horses have become incredibly ill from drinking fluoridated water. So, you know, there can be issues. And I think it's nonsense to say, well, let's give it to those who need it. And for everybody who doesn't need it, well, let them have it anyway, because it might not do them any harm. But it might. And in my opinion, it absolutely will.
I just want to read out some of the texts because they've come in the same minute, these texts. My dentist 46 years ago told me to take fluoride tablet every week during my pregnancy. I have 4 children. Each time they took fluoride and they have no fillings. I rest my case. Yet another says my child had fluoride damage to her teeth. The fluoride caused patches to the enamel. She had to have veneers. Ellie from North London says the same. My teeth and those of my friends from the village where I grew up are severely discoloured because of adding fluoride to the water. It is an incredibly polarised debate, Rosemary. And the problem is, I suppose, if you do put fluoride into everybody's water, there will be lots of people who say we just don't want it.
Well, I think there needs to be some standardisation, and what people shouldn't be doing is going and giving their children fluoride drops or taking fluoride drops without checking first how much fluoride they've already got naturally in their water, because it's very variable across the country. I mean, to me, there is a strong case for putting fluoride in everywhere and then saying, right, there is fluoride in the water, therefore you don't need to take extra fluoride drops. Make sure your children don't swallow their toothpaste and only use a pea-sized blob. Then everybody knows what they need to do, and we are protecting those children who sadly are not having their teeth looked after properly by their parents, and they are out there.
Lots of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. I think there's many other ways of dealing with that. You know, I said rather facetiously earlier, ban fizzy drinks, but I don't think it's any more a daft idea than putting fluoride in absolutely everybody's water. I think
slightly
look at
less
the diet.
practical, that's the thing.
Well, maybe, but look at the diet issues first. You have to address the bigger picture. You need to look at the holistic picture, and making everyone, animals, even when you wash your car, where everyone has to be attacked by fluoride. Look at the environmental issues. It's yet another chemical that we absolutely do not need to be mass medicated with.
Every couple days, we see articles along similar lines of the 2 articles I'm about to show you. We have giant archives on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com full of these stories where the mainstream media admits the truth, where government documents are being reported on. But it never makes the big nightly news, and Joe Sixpack and Sally Soccer Mom are never told to protect themselves, so they don't. And my point is, if our government will test chemicals and biologicals on our own troops, killing and maiming them over the last 50 years, still ongoing, if our government will do all of these horrible things to American citizens, then what will they do to citizens of the West to blame foreign enemies and have a pretext for global empire and trillions of dollars of assets that they'll be able to basically steal from foreign countries? So really it's about ceasing to be naive. You know, for so many years I have warned people about different types of fluoride. And the media will tell you, the dominant controlled media, that sodium fluoride and calcium fluoride and all these fluorides are good for you. And yes, it's true. Calcium fluoride found naturally in the water in trace amounts is good for you. So is arsenic. So is cyanide. You need just microscopic amounts of this for normal cellular communication and action. But in even moderate levels, arsenic or cyanide will kill you and is very, very bad for you. But there's this joke in society. After the 1945 and the end of World War II, there were all of these toxic waste dumps all over the world, all over the Western world, where governments had stockpiled the toxic waste from the leftover aluminum production facilities. And so a byproduct of aluminum purification and manufacturing is sodium fluoride and other toxic stannous fluoride, other forms of fluoride. It's also a byproduct of petroleum-based fertilizers. And so there were all these warehouses all over Germany, all over England, all over Russia, all over the United States, full of sodium fluoride and other types of fluoride, many times mixed in with a cocktail of other toxic elements. And so what did they do? They had a PR campaign in the late 1940s about how great fluoride was for your teeth, and put out newspaper articles saying only kooks are against it. You know, they're these crazies that think it's part of the Red Menace, you know, to control your mind. Not only were these different types of fluoride a toxic waste that was very expensive to store, it also did have a toxic sedative effect when people ingested it. And documents came out. I mean, this is in, you know, mainstream university studies. Famous books about World War II have been written, award-winning, you know, some of the most famous books out there about how the Nazis controlled some of their occupied populations. And they would put sodium fluoride into the water, stannous fluoride into the water. Now, that's admitted. And so you go see a great film like Dr. Strangelove by Stanley Kubrick, and the crazy man who's going to nuke the world, why, you know, the crazy General Jack T. Ripper, why, this guy, he is obsessed with fluoridation. And so anybody that thinks fluoridation is bad is evil and is probably going to kill you. And so I remember hearing this 10, 12 years ago, and I was just waking up to the global system, to the matrix. So I started doing research, and I found Chinese studies, Irish studies, British studies, German studies, a whole bunch of studies done in the 20s, 30s, and 40s at the University of Texas, where they found that giving high levels of fluoride to rats would make them become docile and toxic and they die, and where they found that it had all these different effects and how deadly it was and how once it's in the environment it's really hard to get rid of.